and they're never, I've been caught saying all kinds of stuff beforehand. So I just want to warn the guest. Okay, we're just waiting on YouTube. Okay. All right. Okay. So welcome everybody to the live and replay. Todd Medina. It's a very, very powerful day. We got a beautiful beloved sister we're going to get to know, Brooklyn Rayne. We're also going to have two more divine feminine souls come on tonight that I've never met before. So this is a powerful, powerful day. It is 11/10/2020 or 10/11/2020, depending on what part of the world you're in. But everything that comes with the twos and the ones the last 2 or 3 years has been very powerful. We are going to unveil our website tonight. Thank you, Mother Goddess. And I'm going to be coming on after the last show, and we'll be just doing a radio show and showing you around the webpage. And so thank you, everybody, for your continued love and support and contributions. It's been a very long road, and we could never have done it without you. So we're going to keep working our butts off to keep expanding this platform and to support those like Brooklyn Rayne to expand awareness of what they're doing. We'll be right back after we play the 1 minute, 19-second intro and Todd gets his composure. How's it going, everybody? We got Brooklyn Rayne in the house, and it's a very exciting time. As you can tell, I'm very excited. And I just want to make one more quick announcement. We have been getting suppressed, but we have a solution to that problem beginning tomorrow with our tomorrow shows. We'll be originating them from our website as well as multi-streaming as well. But if you could share this to one page or one group, that'd be great. Brooklyn Rayne, it's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for honoring us with your presence and sharing space with us today. I know a lot of people are familiar with you because I got a lot of hits when that was announced. And as usual, I did it at the last second. So I can't imagine how many people would have reached out had I put it up 24 hours ago. But welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I like I said, I don't normally talk to anybody before a show because I like to keep it spontaneous and intuitive and creative, imaginative, and depending on what we're talking about, doing courageous. It seems to work. 2,400 episodes, and but I did dip into your page, and I saw you were associated to some degree, collaborated with Ethan Fox and Michaela. We won't hold that against you. We know they are a motley crew over there, but I did see that you channel. And I did pick up on your energy a little bit. It looks like you've been doing this a while. When did you wake up, or were you always this weird?
Well, if you ask my family, they would say I was this weird from day one. But
Yeah.
Really, my journey of awakening began around 2012 and really picked up in 2014. So even though it seems like it's been a really long time, I
Yeah.
guess from a linear perspective, not too long.
Yeah. Well, you're right. It's relative. Mine's, and so many people were around 2012, give or take a year. I was the same. And it is interesting too, because we've had, obviously a lot of different types of people come on here, a lot of different stories, experiences, and journeys. There are some commonalities, the black sheep that turned into the golden child, estrangement from the family, psych wards, incarceration, don't want to go out in public and all that stuff, recluses. But some of them have, I can think of a couple of women that came on this year that they only woke up, like I say only, 2017 or 2018, but the frequency of what they share and what they illuminate is as strong as some of the people that come on that woke up in the 60s. And we've had people from the late 60s and 70s that woke up back then and knew they were a starseed and all that. Now, has I know you channel, and we can get into that, but what was there any particular essences, galactic or angelic, elemental, whatever, that brought you to the party, that kind of brought you out in 2014?
That's a good question. So, really, it was sort of my surrender point. I had kind of come to this place of like a full internal storm, and literally threw my hands up in the air one day and said, okay, I surrender, God. I have no idea what I'm doing. And I knew that there was something that wanted to birth.
Yeah.
And so I guess God was the first,
Yeah.
first on the front line. And I heard this voice that said, it's time to meditate. Literally heard the voice. And I thought, okay, all right, I guess I better listen to this. And so I did. And as, I began to meditate, everything began to shift and change rapidly. And I would say from the very beginning, the presence of Christ consciousness
Yeah.
was most evident and most palpable,
Yeah.
and present. But certainly Saint Germain has, which of course is included within that frequency. But yeah, and then divine feminine, ascended masters,
Yeah.
and such. But also the Palladians and blah, blah, blah.
Oh yeah, this
It's a party over
everyone.
here.
No, I'm not sick. Thank you very much. Somebody said, "Are you sick?" Well, it's interesting too, because some people are like clairaudient. The different clairs. I don't hear like voices. I've not heard that often voices like you're talking about. I know other people that have, like Morgan and other people. But I always, I know, like when I started in 2011, 2012, it was a masculine voice, right? When you said God a minute ago, that's kind of how it started for me too. But at some point, the Mother Goddess came in, right? I mean, I remember specifically the incident. I was connecting. I was climbing up this hill. There was a little kind of cottage at the top of the hill or mountain, and it was late at night, and there was a window, and I said, Father God, Father God. And he came to the window, and he's like, yes. Like I was wondering why he was being quiet. And then I heard a woman's voice behind him. And I said, I didn't know you had a wife. And then that's when the re-education, I think that's when I moved into junior high school. But for you mentioned the feminine. Was there a point where she stepped in, and did she have like a direct message that was different than what you'd been hearing?
That's a great question. No, I don't know that there was like this defining moment of it. It always felt sort of both,
Yeah.
kind of all encompassing.
Yeah.
I did grow up with organized religion. So
Yeah.
there was a lot of unprogramming and such
Yeah.
to take place. But I'm trying to think if there was this really, well, really, I would say probably a few years ago, I kept hearing this over and over again. Divine feminine, you're here to be a part of bringing and activating divine feminine Christ consciousness.
Yeah.
And I had to really like override a lot of this mental programming, right? Because
Yeah.
I thought like, am I making this up right now? I've never even
Yeah, you're right. We've all been there.
I don't know that I've ever heard anyone mention this.
Mm.
And so interesting. And this is funny. I haven't thought about this story. So thank you. So I go, I'm a spiritual book hoarder, admittedly so. And so I go online and I was on Amazon and I was typing something in to get some, who knows what it was. And all of a sudden, this book, so this is like a few weeks after this download keeps coming in, and Isis and these different, ascended masters are coming in and really bringing in this like waves of this divine feminine Christ consciousness. And so a book pops up on my on my page on the computer, and it says
Sophia Code.
the Sophia Code,
Yeah,
divine feminine Christ consciousness. And I thought, oh, it really exists.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew you were gonna say that book. I almost said it before you said it. I knew you were gonna say that. I know Morgan's got a copy of it. So she got similar. When I listened to her story the first time, and other women that I've talked to, that specifically were getting messages that they were here to, and there's many ways to say it, but to anchor the mother goddess back onto the planet. And I remember when I first heard that, I was like, because I'd had my experiences already. And then I met her and it exploded, that side of it, the goddess communicating with me much of the time through her. And so, but I remember, thinking about it going, wow, this is really atypical, like what you're talking about before with the organized religion. Because I look at even like the Tibetan Buddhists. I mean, I don't see any feminine Dalai Lamas out there. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like it's affected every one of them, right? So it made a lot of sense to me. And then as Soulology became its own consciousness, about 2.5 years ago, it came in and started talking to us. And that was the first thing it said was, Soulology is a platform for the voices of the mother goddess. And in that moment, I knew that meant every man, every woman, the part of us had been suppressed. And yeah, I've heard a lot of women talk about it. So, and where does it stand now? I know you channel, but is it there's certain go-tos, or do you still have this, this library of the galactic, angelic, and different? You're like a cosmic switchboard operator.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to describe it. Well, there is this Sophia collective that comes in, and I would say is very much a part of pretty much all that I'm do here and am. But at certain times, there'll be a particular collective or divine feminine, like the 12th dimensional ancient Palladians. They often step forward, but they step forward also as this divine feminine collective for me. And
so they step up as a feminine collective at times.
Yes, and yeah. Most, I mean, I know that there's both divine masculine and divine feminine.
Of course.
Yeah. It's just that part of my lineage has been with them, and specifically with the teachings of the divine feminine principles and the full integration of the emotional body, which is of course divine feminine in nature. So they come in to help and assist and guide through a lot of this integration of our emotional bodies, integrating the polarities and
there seems to be a pretty strong, if I have to look at the different galactic energies, at least from the people I've talked to in my own experience, Pleiadian seems to be at the forefront. And it does seem to have more, like 51% plus of feminine versus masculine. And one of the things I noticed too is that, and this might just be my own journey, but so there's a lot of women that have connected to that energy and that are linked somehow, like you said, to that lineage. And then for the men, it's kind of like the Kali energy. They come in and they're like, because what you said about the emotions, I'd never heard anyone say it that way before, but that is that is what it is. I mean, because if you look at, for instance, men, what do? We hide our emotions, right? So what are you doing? You're suppressing the mother goddess, right? Women were less likely to do that, but it still occurred, and they were imprinted by having to respond to that alteration or whatever you want to call it, or that construct of the matrix. So that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Now, who do you work with mostly? You mentioned Saint Germain a minute ago. It seemed like you had a kind of quite a bit of affection for that consciousness. Is
Yes.
there? I know you're all over the place in the best of ways, but are there certain go tos that you have?
Sure. Well, I feel like Saint Germain was a very significant, it continues to be a significant part of the beginning part of my journey. And so he continues to be, yet he kind of steps in and out of this massive Christ collective that shows up.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say, who necessarily, which collective, because depending on who I'm working with or what, we're gathered here, right? And the collective energy that's gathered here, then lots of different beings and guides step forward. Well, I
Yeah.
will say that the common thread throughout all of them is the unity conscious law of one,
Yeah.
the Christos mission. So everything it seems that I'm here to be in my path of service is linked under this umbrella of helping to bring everyone back into the law of one.
Yeah. Yeah. Has it ever been a struggle for you being an ET walking the earth?
Yeah. It's not only a struggle for me, but for my beautiful husband who is very, very 3D.
Oh, is he really? Oh, we've
Yeah.
had so many couples on here, and it's so interesting because there is a certain template, and I can think of about 4 or 5 women, and their husband is, well, like you said, like very 3D, but there seems to be like this I don't know what you would call it, like intuitive, or just, in other words, there's seemingly very 3D, but at the same time they kind of get it.
Yes.
Does that make sense to you with him?
100%.
Yeah.
And he has this like massive childlike heart that is just, so, I hold the space for him to fully come into it at some point, should he choose. And when that happens, watch out, world.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, people like that. We have developed to a degree almost too many complexities in ascension, right? I mean, there's stuff all over the place, modalities and transmissions and downloads and channelings, and then there's these people that just carry it. Like, you know what I mean? They're so present. They're not selfish. They just have the virtues of the soul, overall. And they just have this way of moving around moment by moment, fully present. And it's very natural. And I've known a few like that, and it just baffles me. I'm like, why do I have to go the hard way? Um, and so like if you had to just kind of encapsulate what your focus is presently, like where you
Sure.
headed. I know in general you are pulling everybody into that core, of unification, of Christ consciousness, unity consciousness, one, law of one. But do you have like specificities within the generality of your,
Sure.
your work, your practitionership?
Sure. Yes. So, I think it just depends on, who we're meeting and who
Yeah.
we're working with. But um, essentially, I think, it spans in and out. So sometimes I'm being called to work within the physical body more so. Other times more within the emotional body or the mental body or the spiritual body. So hopefully this is answering it, because it's kind of hard to answer. It's sort of hard to pinpoint it. It seems like anytime that I'm, meeting with an individual, you know, uh, I'm meeting them where they are, and essentially it's to hold this mirror for them to remember who they are and why they're here, right? And to help them to be able to integrate more and more of their divine architecture and
Yeah.
whatever they need in order to meet them where they are on their path. So, and of course, I believe that, that is true of when I'm going to speak somewhere or do an event. It's sort of, I just ask, what's in the highest and best interest? How do I show up and be of the best service in this? And then it can be anything from, like, at the expo this coming weekend, divine forgiveness came through. And then all these different, like, combination of, like, a multi-galactic experience versus, and then additionally, very earth and grounding. So, I know that's kind of all over the road.
No, it's not. It reminds me of that. I remember when I was a little kid, and, back when the color TVs first came out. I'm aging myself, but at least for us anyway. And they had this local show, Dialing for Dollars, and they would just dial random numbers and pull. You know what I mean? No, I think that's perfect. And so, like, and I know what you're saying too, in terms of, like, when you meet somebody, it's all contingent on what's going on at that time. I'm married to a practitioner, and I've been around it enough. I understand when a lot of them say, when I go into the situation, I open my field up completely. And then I ask them to do the same, with their permission or whatever. And then the magic starts. One of the things I noticed, though, and I'm curious what your experience has been, it sounds to me very similar to what I've heard and observed with Morgan and some other practitioners, in that you show them themselves, right? Like, you open the door, and then it's Katie bar the door, and then they're off to the races. Where in the old, I say old, but in the journey getting to that point where that became more prevalent, there was more of a student teacher type of scenario. And I think a lot of practitioners went through that process, and I watched them end of last year, beginning of this year, having to let go and adapt and modify modalities and even their approach. Does that ring a bell with you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, because from the very moment of awakening on this journey, one of the teachings that came through and, umbrellaed under this Christ collective, is that, to let go of attachments to any role, right? To know you'll really be in the greatest amount of service if you surrender into the knowing that there's always the student and the teacher within any person and interaction simultaneous. Student, teachers, teacher, student.
Yeah.
And the more that you allow yourself to just melt into that knowingness, the more profound the experience will be for both people involved. And so that really imprinted, and really I thought, wow, it's so beautiful, because it also really releases us from the weightedness of the matrix and this whole idea of, like, me better than you.
Yes.
Because no one's better than another person, no matter if we have a million gifts that we brought in, or one or none. We're all equally as significant and amazing. So
that's right. And I just want to say something real quick to Gilda Stern. Thank you so much for that beautiful comment. I would put it up, but I can't because it's too big. But I love your son, and I just want to say thank you very much for that. Those are the type of comments that have kept us going over the years. So another thing too, like with what you're saying, it's true. And the reason I asked you that question is because one of the values, I think, of this platform is that people, probably maybe the number one, is that people hear things, pick up code, whatever you want to call it, information, and they say, oh my God, I'm not crazy. Like, I'm not the only one. And what I've noticed is this: I have a tremendous amount of respect. I don't resonate with everybody, just like everybody else. But this is a buffet, like Morgan says, and we bring in whoever we can and stay open, and it's worked pretty well. But what I'm getting at is I have so much respect for these people that pull down this information, hear the guidance, and then actualize it and take steps forward. We're all perfectly imperfect, so we're all going through the same thing. Like you said, we're all the same in so many ways, in the human aspect and in all the other. But what I've noticed is that I've also noticed how much of a challenge some of these folks have had with what you're talking about, which we would normally consider it in respect to the matrix and its labels.
Mhm.
But I'm channeling so and so essence. I was such and such in a past life. I had this modality. It's very unique. There's a challenge to the transitioning divine human, or you could say there's a challenge to the ego. You know what I mean? And so I've watched some really powerful transformations of people who are taking in massive Akashic downloads. And that's got to be a challenge. I mean, to not think, wow, I'm really special, you know? Seriously, because you know how the universe is. It's not going to let you go that far very long anyway. It's going to come give you some humble pie. But
Yeah.
that's, to me, that's a very potent, powerful, transformational event or frequency to be able to witness. And I see it more and more now, which is kind of strange because you think, oh my God, we're going to be up here in heaven on earth and nirvana, and it's fantastical, and we're all going to have wings and, you know, chariots and all that. But it's actually becoming a very human thing. And what I notice about these people that I'm referring to, such as yourself, you're very down to earth. Like you're not caught up in it. You do your thing, but you're also very down to earth, and you can make jokes about your husband on a on a show where everybody is here. No, but you know what I mean? Does that
Thank
make
you.
sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. I think
Yeah.
100% yes. And uh, yeah, I 100% understand what you're saying. And I think that, you know, there's great compassion for everybody who's coming into their gifts and really stepping into walking their path of service here, and all the, like you're saying, all the different ways that we have to sort of squeeze it in to the human suit, and to
Yeah.
you know, as we're releasing the density, sometimes that release isn't happening as quickly as the intel and the gifts.
Yes.
So there's that
Yeah.
in between stage where you're, you know, you're trying to represent the significance of what's coming
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
and being in service, and you know, the ego's like got the death grip, you
Yeah.
know.
You're white knuckling it like you're on a
Yeah.
roller coaster.
Yes, yeah.
That's very true. I was telling Maureen this a couple days ago. Through all this intense energy, just that kind of popped up a few days ago. Like
Mhm.
that's getting so difficult to say because it's like every day is a 2 or 3 period or 5 day period. But I was coming back from the store one night after a long day and just thinking, and I guess I was connecting. You know, the communion was happening, and I got this message in. It was like, you know, the hardest thing is, you know, this is you, in other words, you guys are moving so rapidly and expanding with such volume, you know, like major giant steps, like you're accelerating timelines and blowing away prognostications in terms of, you know, dates that this is going to happen. And they said, but it's very moving all this and transforming physically, mentally, emotionally, and so on is a lot on the human aspect. So like the human aspect's like going, okay, what's going on here? So it's like, how do we get used to this? Like this is going to be the natural thing now. Like we're supernatural. That's our natural, you know, and it's kind of difficult because we're hearing everything now. Telepathy is like boomed.
Oh yeah.
And we're having, and then that the ego comes in there. Oh, did she say that? Does she think that? You know, or better yet, can she hear me? You know, I've had good training because I've been married to a psychic and connected with her for 5 years. I couldn't hide anything. But seriously, it's like the human is front and center now. And on one hand, it's the the delicate part of it, but on the other hand, it's the new dominion. It's like leading the way now. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's, I think, yeah, things are moving so rapidly. And I know, to your point, it's funny because I find myself saying that, and I find myself also saying, like, and how long have we been saying this, right?
Yeah.
And thank goodness it does come in these
Yeah.
cycles of every 3 days. Because if it all hit at once, we would probably, you know,
Yeah.
explode. But yeah, Absolutely. I think we're requiring a lot more rest right now,
Absolutely.
and a
Yeah.
lot more of just, it's interesting that whole like full circle that happens, every couple months. It's like, okay, now we're focusing more on the spiritual body. I mean, there's always a focus on each of them, right? Yet, and now I feel like in this month of November, it's like, wow, okay, we need to come back around a little bit now to the physical body,
Yeah.
extra hydration, extra
Yeah.
rest,
Yeah.
extra grounding, all sorts of ways to support this massive transformation, cellular transformation that's
Yep.
taking place. And so, yes, it's intense, it's amazing, and it's really uh, it brings so much childlike joy to think about, like, okay, it's already been really magical and amazing. How, the linear mind can't even conceptualize that it could get much better, yet it is.
Yeah, it is. And it's we've been talking about this the last 2 3 days on the show, off and on. The physical part, like, I mean, I've for about 5 years been waking up when there's a lot of transformation with a red dot on my third eye and other parts of my body, but it's always here, and it's dry skin. It's just dehydration, and that's really ramped up the last few days. People talking about their, perspiring. It smells like metal.
Yeah.
There's, taste, aches. I notice I have, when there's a lot going on. I don't. It's not like arthritic, but I get this pressure in my joints.
Mm-hmm.
I guess everybody has their own, ways of detecting it, or their body's telling. Plus, the body telling us, "I want this. I don't want that. You need to do this. You need to do that." A lot of people have talked about that this year. Has there been a? Well, let me ask you this way: you're channeling.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. So your channeling, is it a collective type of message, or more of a personal, here's how you navigate the ascension type of message, or both?
Sure. I guess I would say both.
Mm,
When well, and then, it's always an individual and a collective, right?
yeah,
Because we're
true.
so interconnected. Yet, when I'm doing, let's say, a private session, I specifically tune into whatever's in the highest and best interest of coming in for that
Yeah,
person, right? And then if it's like a group setting, then it's okay, what's the overall, what will be the most helpful and impactful message? And within as you know, right, within each of these messages, whether it's intended for an individual or a group, it's not just the words that are being spoken, but it's this massive transmission of energetic codexes and
yes,
light frequencies, etc. So it's going to meet each person where they are, and they're going to extrapolate from that
yeah,
their own intake. And a beautiful example of this is that I'm doing this online series, or this like activation series right now. And it was so exciting because a few of the people that are in this once a week class are also clients of mine that I see one on one. And after the first week, this woman came in, and she was having a session, and she's been a client for a long time. And she said, "Oh my gosh, I'm just so thankful that you brought the sacred breath work into the first activation." And I stood back for a moment, and it resonated and landed immediately as truth. But the guides came in quickly, and they were like, it's true for her."
yeah,
And I thought, what? And so it was so interesting because it was like witnessing this, this whole timeline shift. And so I said, gosh, that's so interesting. I'm not remembering that, but I said, but I'm certain that I've sensed that this is true for you. So I kind of, we went into our session and da da da, and then the next day there was another person, and she said, "Oh, I wanted to write down something that came through in the channeling during the activation last week, but I was guided just to stay present in it and go back to it." She said, and then when I went back to it, she said it was no longer there. And so the guides came in to say, because she integrated it, and she
ah,
had shifted timelines. And
Yeah.
so, what was being brought to her in that transmission and that now moment that she was experiencing, she heard it audibly, she received it, she integrated it. And when she went back to retrieve it, it wasn't there any longer because it was no longer relevant to her present moment, awareness and where she was. So,
Wow.
I think that just brings in further that anytime anything comes through to be channeled, um, it's meant for us on an individual basis in
Yeah.
that here now moment, as
Yeah.
well as the collective. And then when you come back to it, if you record it, it's going to be,
Yeah.
new and different each time.
Yeah, that's very true. That's another thing I noticed too in these stories as I talk to people and in my own life, you know, because mine was a lot like you described at the top of the show. There was, like 6 ascendeds, 3 angels, 3 spirit guides. Everything was always like 3, 6, 9, 12 too. That was another thing. 12, 12, 12.
Mm-hmm.
But over time, I had some physical experiences, like physical slash non-physical, that dimensional place, that space between them, uh, where I embodied, and there was visual evidence. And then other times it just kind of happened or whatever. That what you said about it was no longer there because she's now integrated it. Uh, Similar to that, like people tell their stories in the early years, and it's like these energies are external or at least perceived as external. And then at some point, like a lot of people I've talked to said that I used to talk to this whole group, this whole energy complex, with like, like a rainbow coalition representation of the universe. And now it's all kind of gone down, down, down to like one voice or one, and it doesn't speak anymore. I've heard people say that. I just know, it's so there's a lot to be said for that. I wonder how that's going to affect. This is an interesting thing, and you're a practitioner, so you might have a good perspective on this or something new for us because I'm trying to learn modalities, modalities and processes, things that have been downloaded as the sacred wisdom they are, most by women, okay, that I've seen, and then you share it. Is that not like any other code? Not to take anything away from it, but the way this stuff is being transferred now is not like it was a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago. It's like we're all babies again learning at warp speed. And I wonder how that's going to affect that. In other words, will sessions become, me and you sit down in your office for 5 minutes and stare at each other, and everything is, you know what I mean? Have you seen any change in the way your sessions are
Oh
going?
yeah, it's so I love this because I think it's really important and it's really relevant, and I think it goes back into that same wisdom that was offered, slightly different application of it,
Yeah,
where it was like the teacher student. It's like they just always say just remain neutral, remain malleable,
yeah,
remain like shapeless, right,
yeah,
and just be in that place of neutrality, and that's where the evolution takes place, right? And so I just try to show up in the session and just be as open as possible and let whatever is meant to come through. And I think in doing that, if that's where magical things like you're saying happen, and
yeah,
and new techniques and ways of
yeah,
doing things and being come through. I think it's when if we feel like we were trying to have a stronghold on
yeah,
something that we're familiar with, that we've done for so long, that then there's this like weird, like sort of resistance, and then it becomes kind of awkward in the session because you're trying to do it in this way that you've done for so long, but now everything is shifted
yeah,
collectively to where that no longer is applicable.
yeah,
And I love it. And yes, I think, especially for someone like yourself and so many others that I'm sure are here listening, it's like, I think we need less linear time together.
yeah,
I think a
yeah,
lot can happen in a small period of time. And one of
yeah,
my favorite things that's come in over the last few years is staring into one another's eyes,
yeah,
turning everything into a hologram. And then when you're in that 0 point, things can move so quickly that what would have maybe taken far longer doing a different types of like hands-on, and which are beautiful and still very relevant, can happen in like seconds, because everybody's sort of succinct in this different level of conscious awareness, if you will.
Yeah, I see it. And to me, it's like watching, what do they call that when you're watching like they take they set a camera outside in front of a flower field, and they accelerate and you see the sun go down and come up real fast, right?
Yeah.
I see it like that. Like it's just going and somehow or another, and I think this is part of what I got the other night, a couple nights ago, we're able to do it. But the humans like going, wow, like, like when is the shoe going to drop kind of thing, because it always did. Right. But, yeah, that's interesting. I have to shift gears and then I'm going to come back, but I have to ask you this because I keep thinking about your husband, and maybe he's just in my field. I don't know. Or maybe that whole scenario is in my field, because I find it very intriguing. So does he ever look at you? Like, do you ever like walk in and twinkle your nose like Bewitch and do things? Does he ever feel like Darren? I guess is what I'm saying.
Oh, well, it's funny because he'll come in the door, and sometimes, if we're women, right? And I have 3 children as well. So I have 3 boys.
Wow.
And so we're multitaskers. And sometimes I'm so in the flow of like the 3rd dimensional, like linear domestic tasks. But at the same time, I'm having a whole discussion with some, galactic council of some sort. And he'll come in, and I've already seen him sort of like out over here, like coming in and needing this, and this, and he's going to ask me about that, and but I can't pause him when I'm doing, and this is really interesting over here. Yeah. So I'll say, "Oh, hi, hon," and and he'll just look at me like, "What?"
You're just cutting to the chase. That's all.
He's like, "What? Why do we even talk anymore?"
Wow. Yeah, that's cool though. That's
so
cool though.
I think that would be. And then he's a physician. So he's, like an emergency medicine physician. And so I think he finds it very interesting and bizarre that when he has like an injury or something, and he comes and, he'll say, "Hey, can you..." Can you twinkle your nose? Yeah. Can you work on this thing? And
he's a doctor.
Yeah. Wow. And he's still like dumbfounded. He can't believe it. He just doesn't understand.
Do you know Mary Rodwell?
I do not. No.
Mary Rodwell's out of Australia. She's been a way shower, first waiver, whatever you want to call it. I think probably about 35 years. Anyway, she's very well respected. She's written a few books. She'd be easy to find. But so because of her longevity and her reputation, integrity, over the last 2-3 years, she's been on the show a few times. And over the last 2-3 years, professionals, physicians, scientists, professors, have reached out to her and said, "Hey, we're like aware of what's going on, but we can't talk about it publicly. Can you like assist us?" So she's been instrumental in putting together private groups for these types of people to communicate. And I just think of your husband, whenever you were talking about that, because to me, when those that hold those types of positions or statures in society, in 3D, whatever you want to call it, when they start crossing over, that's going to be like, whoa, it's going to be like, whoa. And these kids, by the way, and so you've got kids at home though. How old are they?
15, 13, 11.
Oh
all
my
boys.
God. Well, at least I had the 4 girls and 2 boys, and the boys are a lot easier, but still to be going through, oh my God. So you're 1 on 4 in your house.
Well, and Rudy, my Ascension dog, he's also a boy.
Oh my God. So you're illuminating, you're the column of light there, right? But yeah, and I've talked to people. My two youngest we spent about almost 3 years together in the early part of my reawakening, and they were instrumental in what I was able to learn through that, uh, through that exchange that we had. Uh, but I can't imagine. I talk to a lot of people, and I've run into people like you. It'd be one thing because you hear these stories with the people I talk to, and the children are young, and they're coming in and they're saying some amazing things, and they're like, but the teenagers, even if, and I know they're lit, don't get me wrong, but they're also teenagers. So I can't imagine that multitasking. I don't know if I could have done it, to be honest with you. Morgan and I look at each other a lot and go, thank God we don't have any kids in the house with everything that we're doing, and everything that it takes. Do you ever just have to step away and go into solitary confinement, the universal isolation?
I've so because I, began to wake up when they were pretty young still. I think the youngest was 4.
Okay.
I have had an opportunity to really get them accustomed to my meditation practice and the importance of time to ourselves and such.
Wow.
So, I mean, this past weekend, 15 boys running through the house, complete animal house, right?
Yeah.
But it's perfect. It's so
Yeah.
perfect,
Yeah.
because it's a perfect opportunity to be the eye of the hurricane.
Yeah.
And so somehow when we don't resist it and we just
Yeah.
allow them to be themselves and we allow ourselves to be where we are, it all works out somehow.
Yeah.
And you can still find those pockets of peace. I don't get a chance to get away that often. And I find that the more and more I'm each day showing up with the flashlight, right, going in and like looking, what needs to be recognized, honored, and integrated,
Yeah.
the more I feel this sense of peace. And I
Yeah.
don't feel the need to get away or to go anywhere because I feel like it's just coming from the center point of, the, of my beingness, right? And so um, I feel very grateful for that because there were lots of years at the beginning when I was shedding big layers of resentment and, still playing out the victim programming and all these
Yeah.
things where it was like, I just need to get out of here. And it's like, the universe was like, no, 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 you need to just get in here,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
just need to realize that there's nowhere to go,
Yes.
you know?
Isn't that? I got to say two things. One, I try to break everything down for myself to the human level. Like, okay, I get all that, but what does that mean? What does that look like here? Like as I go from moment to moment to moment, and as I'm listening to you and seeing you, like like a whirling dervish, like the eye of the hurricane, right? The 50. Uh, that's at the gut level, boots on the ground, anchoring the mother goddess energy. That is a exemplifies it, right? And I think another thing too is like what you're talking about is so important. You mentioned the word 0 point. My wife says zero pointing. I mean, she's downloaded that for 20 years. She's got a website, zeropointing.com. It's becoming more of a buzzword. It's more than shadow work.
Mm-hmm.
It's integrating polarities,
Yeah.
and it's it's exciting because to hear somebody still speak in reverence, that's your go-to, right? Like you said, you got all this going on, but that's your go-to. Your go-to is, what can I look for today? You're like on a treasure hunt. What can I look for today where I need to, we used to use the word heal. Now we might use alignment. What have I not discovered? Where are my blind spots? Where's the unconscious programming? This is the greatest contribution we can make to the universe,
Yes.
right? I mean, this is even in your situation with 3 teenage boys and your husband and your escort, Rudy, your assistant escort. I mean, even if you don't say anything and you're doing that, like the tuning fork, they're picking it up, right? And it's just so refreshing to hear that and to see that being the natural priority and the natural, comfortable, relaxed, calm and cool and graceful way to navigate this transition we call ascension. So I applaud you for that, and I applaud you for your forthrightness. I mean, it's nice to hear someone who's been on the journey, who's downloading this type of stuff, to say, I'm still looking.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Do you ever get triggered?
Oh yes, yes. I'm a fire person.
Are you really? They don't strike me as one.
Yes, absolutely. I get triggered. I think for me, like the biggest things to, that are just slowly but surely melting away, um, is, the ancestral patterns,
Yeah.
how the whole unconscious programming that I've downloaded and took on and put on as a suit through my childhood growing up, and just being enough in that present moment awareness in the midst of all the chaos with the children and everything to realize what aspects of that are still playing out, and so um, yeah, so I think one of the biggest things, I'm so glad you asked that question, because now I'm like, oh yeah, I need to work on that. Is
I need to work on this.
is not being, when the children they blatantly don't listen
Yeah.
to something I'm saying. If I'm having a conversation and speak, they blatantly just disregard what I'm saying. There's something deep with, even though it's not a big deal if we step
Yeah.
into this right here, right?
Yeah.
Something gets triggered still, not
I've been there.
often, but it's in
I've been
there.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I get that.
yeah, it's really, and it's so irritating.
And teenage kids can do it like no other. I mean, I was probably 3 years into my reawakening. I got my two little ones back. They were like 11 and 12, young girls, though, already women. You know, um, so we so that would happen to me. But I was trying to deal with it in a practical way, in a way that I could facilitate everything else. The cooking, the cleaning, the so what would happen is every Friday we went on. It was just, and it was unconscious. It just occurred. Every Friday they would come from school before the weekend. I'd sit them in the kitchen, and we had this glass round kitchen table with a glass top, and I would lecture them back and forth. Why don't you clean? Why can't you pick up your underwear off the floor? And why can't you wash clothes? Why can't you wash the dishes? Back and forth, back and forth. Don't you see what I'm trying to do? So one day, I don't remember what it was. I think it was something was on the ground, and as to accentuate my whole fiery speech, I kicked it. And it was just like slow motion, man. It went up in the air, landed right on the glass top table, and shattered.
Oof.
And they both just sat there and looked at me. And that was the end of that. Like, they didn't say a word. They were anchoring the mother goddess at that point. They were just like, but kids will do that to you. They really will. So I don't want to run out of time. I want to give you some time to express yourself a little bit in any way that you want. Ethan and Michaela said that you're a very good dancer, and I figured I'd give you the okay. But yeah, so I think people are going to want to know how to get in touch with you. I would, you can certainly talk about that, and I would encourage you to go to my Facebook page on this, because it's on several different platforms, and then probably Soulogy One Studios YouTube page, and just put your stuff in there, put your links in there, because most of the people that come on the show get lots of hits, messages, inquiries to do sessions, products, and all that. So Soulogy One Studios YouTube, and then of course Todd Medina Facebook page, and then tomorrow we can talk about sharing it on our website. Thank God, after 9 years, I'm a little excited. I hope you don't mind.
No, that's awesome.
But Yeah, and if there's anything that you would like to do, seriously, if you want to channel, if you want to do a blessing, light language, anything at all, or if you want to, if you have some more commentary, something you want to talk about, but the
Sure.
floor is yours now.
Okay, how long of a period of time in the
Long,
event that I do a
long as you want,
channeling? Okay.
long as you want. We don't have another show for 52 minutes, and I'm never on time anyway. So,
Well, let me ask you, since this is a congratulatory moment for your website, um, what would you like a water activation, a cellular water activation, for everyone, or
my dear sister, who's been a big part of this journey, just said Brooklyn's water activation was incredibly supportive. I have no idea what that is, but yes, we'll select that one. Door number
okay,
one.
yay, okay. I felt like that was coming in the whole time.
Okay.
So okay, so um, closing your eyes if it feels comfortable, and just finding whatever breath feels most supportive and nourishing and nurturing, and dropping into that centered point of your beingness, that beautiful and profound heart space, and just taking some deep breaths and allowing yourself to receive, knowing that the intention for this activation is to call in the greatest healing miracles capable of taking place here and now with perfect grace and ease for each and every one of the beautiful divine beings that is gathered. Ayasoshiento kuya nutoja sheto topia shintea vose asheto sheto sheataya vose sheto kutia shoto tia shea toya sheto kunyo vose uya she shotonya pujata shatontia vose ku se toshinyo totoya ayakaria toshe. Anyako ese tote anyako. Uyanyata tosheto. Anya sote ashe to kanye pupadia tata. Yanyako tota yoshate. Nya soto nya huya ya kea konya nya unya te ya shetuko. Uya ki ya koya ya. Ya okuenya uya io ya kai te urienya uaya ke ui ki anya unye uya Ianyo ya ke kuya she kuya nyo kunyo na puya ya she kuya kaya tunya uya ya uye. Yeshe sokaya paya kanya yese yoshenia kaya usia 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 sushia shokaya koya bushitia. Yeah, so cool. Aya kunya aya kaya kokishe kunyo. Oe e kunya nya use kaya kako. Anya ke kukunyin anya kuyese kakao kunyako. Coming back now into your heart spaces, taking a few nice, deep, nourishing breaths, sending them all the way down, down, down through your feet, and grounding yourselves into the crystalline diamond core and womb water of Sophia Gaia. And so it is, and so it is, and so it is. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. So it is. That was good. I'm not normally, I don't know what it is, too receptive, or I don't know, but that was good. I could feel that from the beginning.
Oh, yay.
So, somewhat of well, multifaceted channeling transmission, but strong indigenous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the grandmother, guardian, gatekeepers
Wow.
of Gaia. Yeah, stepping
Yeah.
in.
Yeah. Absolutely. That was familiar. Yeah. 2016 when I left for the last time. Left as in went on the whatever you call it, gypsy with a suitcase and a microphone and a laptop. Uh, they stepped in. That energy stepped in. Like grandmother. It was a grandmother council, basically. Powerful. Powerful. Very powerful. And oh God, I was going to ask you one other thing in regard to. Oh, I know what it was. This is a little boy in me. It's a kind you can tell it comes out every now and then. So, what happens when you do light language? What does your husband do?
Oh, he, I mean, I'm so grateful for him
Mm-hmm.
and his willingness to put up with me.
But I mean, does it ever just come out like when you're hanging out with him and you're just like,
Well, it's interesting that you say that because I think they were, at some point when you were talking about the telepathy and how everything is just,
yeah,
coming out so much. I mean, it's on, right?
yeah,
I mean, really. And so, yes, I'll be walking through the house and instead of, when we talk to ourselves, like, oh, I need to do this, it's starting to come through as light language now. And I catch myself and I'm thinking like, what's going on? But it feels so much more resonant and
yeah,
so much more
yeah,
um, on point. I was just saying to Ethan Fox the other day when we were having a conversation, it feels like more and more like because of this huge consciousness shift for the collective,
yeah,
that the spoken language, which is very much dialed in, as we know, right, and created from the matrix,
yeah,
is no longer capable of holding the codex and the vibrational frequencies of that which we're attempting to communicate. because we're bringing so much more of our oversoul technology in,
Yeah.
and that is so multiversal in nature that the English spoken word or whatever language it is that you're speaking in this third dimensional existence is falls short
Yeah.
and being able to,
Yeah.
to be able to get across what it is. So yes, and so he, I don't. He hears me because my office is in home, and the boys hear me too, and they think it's strange, but at the same time, I think it's it's doing
They're
something.
intrigued. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a lot of the light workers, a lot of us, as we did the crazy things we did, that our families that we were estranged from, even like they wouldn't talk to you, but they're always looking at you. Like they're always like, okay, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and what you're saying is very true. That was a brilliant articulation of it. Like George Bush the second guy said, "You're a good explainer." um, well, because like we've had what we call an open mic spoken word improv, uh, and I just do it spontaneously. But now that the website's kicking off tomorrow, one of the early broadcast initiatives is going to be to put that in about probably at least twice a month. And so what'll happen is I'll make an announcement. I did one like 3 days ago, and I'll say, hey, we're gonna do this. Here's the link, and then the room fills up with 8 or 10 people, and and we just go around the circle. And this last one was really a little bit different than the ones we've had before because there was, I want to say, 3 ladies that came on that they're when I said, how's it going? I've seen your name around. I don't know why I'm here, but I just know I've got to do something. And then the one lady was like, well, I said, do you do light language? She says, yes, but I've never done it for anyone, but I guess I'm about to. And she said, it's not like everyone else's. And, you could see the self-consciousness of it, but man, it was beautiful. I mean, it's just like, I can't even explain it. But I saw what you're talking about, and I've seen it for a while. In fact, I was talking to a guy last night because initially we were going to have 4 channels, and each one will have a certain theme. Okay. Uh, and the fourth one is going to be an art, what I call right now, artistic expression. Could be the same thing though. So you'll have the light language, and you'll have, say, conscious rap, and you'll have, other forms of expression, channelings, whatever. And I told the guy, because I'm talking to this group about kind of filling that slot or managing that channel. They're one of our collaborators, and I said to him, this channel is going to be the one that grows the biggest because this is all we need, really. In that broadcast we had like 3 days ago, there was a point of silence, like without somebody going, "Hey, everybody, be quiet. Let's just look at each." It just happened. You know what I mean? I mean, there's something to be said for what you were talking about in terms of this construct, be it our language or our routine or whatever you want to call it, cannot hold that codex anymore. Like it's bursting at the seams. And so, like everything else with its connectivity, as we're going from carbon base, let's say, to light body, for, to explain it that way, so is the atmosphere around us, as within, without. So it makes total sense. It really does. And anyone that's had any type of dimensional NDEs, out of bodies, it's always telepathic. Anyone that's had past life memories of, even at like Atlantis, it's all telepathic. You don't remember words, you just remember the sound and the wavelengths, and so yeah, it's a very true, very true. It's a pleasure meeting you. I would love to collaborate with you again in the future. Uh, you're very powerful, very down to earth, very very beautiful, and very real. So um, it's an honor for you to have come in and shared space with us. And if you're open to it down the road, we'd love to continue having more and more collaborations and see what kind of trouble we can get into.
Count me in. Count me in. Thank you
Well,
so much.
yeah,
What a pleasure.
absolutely.
I had so
Absolutely.
much fun. Thank
And I
you.
noticed that you're good friends with Kathleen and Haley. We will
Oh,
not hold that
yes.
against you either. She just
Love
came by
her.
here. She came by here about 2 weeks ago, and we sat right here. In fact, she did the first collaboration in this studio that I'd
Oh
ever done.
yeah,
Yeah,
I remember seeing
yeah,
parts of it. Yeah.
yeah. She's beautiful, beautiful lady. Thank you so much. Best to you and your family. All blessings to you and your crew.
Thank you.
And
You too.
I'll pray for you in terms of maybe getting you some feminine energy into your household environment. No, I'm kidding. You don't want to have another baby at this.
Yeah, please don't pray for that. Maybe a
Okay,
cat.
that's what I was going to say. All
All
right,
right.
peace
Bye.
out. See
Bye.
everybody in
Thank you.
36 minutes with the next guest. I can't remember her name.